So now we're ready to create the UI. So our next step is to create the UI since we've already got our game set up. And then after we've created our UI and we've got everything in here, we'll test the game and make sure everything's working the way we want it and our game is completely working exactly how we want it, and we can play all 10 rounds and everything works smooth. And if it's not, then we'll go ahead and problem solve and we'll get this game to work. And so this whole entire concept of using AI to make games, it's not just with making games, it's really with anything. It's just about, can you get the computer to do what you want it to do? Okay, so now it's time to set up our UI. So step one is we need to create the canvas. So first we'll set up these UI elements. So if we go back into Unity, we'll be able to see like our high score and all that stuff. And then we're really going to know how everything's working. We'll see the timer working and all that. And from there, we'll make any adjustments that we need to. But we need to set this UI up now. So step one is to go to the hierarchy and right click UI and canvas and rename it to game canvas. So we'll go over here to our hierarchy. We'll right click. We'll go down to UI. And we'll find canvas. And we're going to rename this to game canvas. So you can see that when we created this canvas, it created what's called an event system underneath. So we don't really have to worry too much about that for this video. But if you see that appear there, just know that that's because we've created the canvas. It'll create an event system as well. So let's go back into ChatGPT. And it says to select the canvas, and then in the inspector, change the UI scale mode to scale with screen size. And we can also set our resolution. So I'll go back over here. I'll click on my game canvas in the hierarchy, and you'll see when I clicked on that, everything over here shows up in the inspector. So you'll see over here in the inspector that under canvas scaler, under UI scale mode, it's set to constant pixel size. What we want to do is click this little drop down menu and hit scale with screen size. And that means that if we change our screen size, or if you're making this for mobile, it's going to make it so that it scales with the screen size. So we're going to be able to play the game even if the screen is bigger or smaller. So we'll go back into ChatGPT, and we don't need to set the resolution. It should already be set, or actually it's not, so we will want to set that. So we'll do 1920 by 1080. And I'll just go ahead and save that. So heading back over into ChatGPT, next we need to add UI text elements. So what we're going to do is we'll add the text elements for displaying timer, health score, and round info. So right click on our game canvas UI and go to UI text Mesh Pro, and we're going to rename this one timer text. So we'll go into Unity, we're going to right click on our game canvas. We'll go to UI, Text Mesh Pro right here. And if it prompts you to import these, go ahead and just import. And then we'll have to import this bottom one also. So now that these are imported, we can X out of that. And you can see right now it just says new text. So we need to, first we'll right click on this and rename this to timer text just to stay organized. And then what we can do is with our timer text selected, if we go over here to the inspector, you'll see it just says new text, and that we can see that on the screen. We're gonna go into chat here, and it says to set this to time and 30 seconds as the placeholder. So what we'll do is we'll just type time and then 30 seconds like that. And we want to make this a little bit bigger. So what we're going to do is change the font size to like say 40, and I'm going to actually change the font style. So that's not in ChatGPT, we didn't ask it about that, but if right here underneath where the time 30 is, under font asset, we can go ahead and click this little like target looking thing, and I'm going to change it to Electronic Highway to give it like a retro kind of game look. So if we go back into chat, it says to set the anchor preset to top center and modify the transform. So this is basically just telling us that we can position this wherever we want. So in order to do this, what we can do is go into Unity, and if we scroll up to the top, we can click on this little thing right here, and I'm going to, with it selected on the center here, I'm going to click this one here for the top left. because I want my timer to be in the top left. So then I can just drag these X and Y positions like this, drag them over, and you can just position this wherever you want. I'm just going to position mine up here like that. And you can change the font size to whatever you want. At this point, it's really just about customizing it to your liking. So next we need to create our health text. So we're going to follow the exact same process, except we're going to name it health, and we're going to start it with 3. So we'll go back and we're going to left click on our game canvas, and then we're going to right click on the game canvas. We'll go to UI, Text Mesh Pro, and we're going to name this one health text. And over here in the text input, we'll just change this to health, and we'll have it start with 3. And for consistency, I'll just make this font size 40 as well. And I'll go up here to the font asset and just change it to Electronic Highway. And if you're getting this issue where the 3 is appearing underneath, we need to make an adjustment. So what we'll do is we'll scroll down and it says Text Wrapping Mode Overflow. We can go from normal to no wrap, and that should straighten it out for you. So what we'll need to do next is just go up and anchor this. I'm going to anchor this one to center and the top left also, and then I'm just going to position this health underneath the timer. And you can customize this however you want. This is just the way I'm doing it. So next we need to create the score text. So we're going to follow again the exact same process. We're just going to change this to score 0. And this time I'm going to put the text up in the right hand corner. So I'll go back to my game canvas and left click, and then right click. I'll go to UI, Text Mesh Pro, and this one we're just going to call score text. And I'll just rename this to score and 0. And again, I'll just make this font 40, the font size 40, and the font Electronic Highway. And this time I'm just going to anchor this to the top center right. And I'll go ahead and just position it up here at the top. And I'm just going to hit File and Save. And I'll go back into ChatGPT. So we need to create the round text so next we need to create the round text so the player knows what round it is. And this is going to appear at the start of each round. So we'll right click on Game Canvas, UI, Text Mesh Pro, and we're going to call it round text. And we'll position it in the middle center this time. And we're going to make it a little bit bigger of a font size to 50. So what we can do is go here to our game canvas, we'll right click, we'll go to UI, we'll go to Text Mesh Pro, and we're going to name this round text. And for now we'll just call it round 1. So I'll go over to my inspector, round 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scroll down here and I'm going to change this to something like 60. And you can see I have this issue again where the 1 is underneath, so all I have to do is go to the text wrapping mode, change it from normal to no wrap. And again, for consistency, we're just going to give this the Electronic Highway. And I think this could actually be a lot bigger, so I'm going to make it something like 100. I'm just going to move it over a little bit so it looks a bit more centered. And I'll hit File and Save. And one other thing real quick, I'm going to go up to my main camera and I'm just going to scroll down here, and under environment it should be set to solid color. I'm going to click this and just make this background black. I think that looks a little bit cooler, and it's going to make it easier for us to focus on the game. So this is really important. Under this, when we're creating the round text, we need to uncheck active in the inspector. So that way it'll be hidden until a new round starts. So what we can do is go to our round text and go up to the top of the inspector, and you can see this little check mark here. We'll just click that, and now the round text is gone. And don't worry, it'll get triggered when we update our game manager code, which I believe we will be doing somewhere down here. Yes. So what we need to do right now is what we need to do next is we have already successfully created some UI elements, but we are going to need to do a little bit more. And we're going to need to create the game over panel. So now's a great time to go into Unity and click save, and next we're going to create the game over UI panel. Okay, so now it's time to create our game over panel. So this panel is going to show when the player loses or wins. So what we need to do is right click on game canvas, UI, and panel, and we'll rename it to game over panel. So again, we're going to go right click, UI, canvas, game over panel. If I can type. So I'm actually not going to make mine semi-transparent. I think that'll be fine, and we'll just kind of resize it as we go here. So we just need to add the game over text next. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on the game over panel, UI, text, and game over text. So go back into Unity, right click, we're going to follow the same process, UI, Text Mesh Pro, game over text. And to keep things consistent, I'm just going to make this something like 100, and then the drop down from normal to, to no wrap. And then we'll just change this to Electronic Highway. And we need to rename this to Game Over. So it has kind of a retro look there. And we can just move this position over here. So now we need to add restart and exit buttons. So this is going to be a little bit different of a process because we're not going to be adding text, we're going to be adding buttons, and buttons are really fun and cool in Unity. So how we can do this is we can follow the same process, sort of. We can right click on the game over panel, go to UI, button, Text Mesh Pro. So we're going to make our restart button. So what we need to do is we'll go over here to our game over panel, we'll right click, go to UI, button, Text Mesh Pro. And you can see we now have a little button here. So we're going to go ahead and rename the button to the restart button to restart the game. And then what we'll do is we'll go over here with our restart button selected. Now, if you notice with our restart button selected, we don't see that option to change what it says. Right now it just says button. That's because we actually, when we're using a button, we need to hit the little drop down arrow here, and then you'll get an option to edit the text. So we'll select that text, and we'll just rename this to restart. And what we can do is we can just go ahead up here, and then what we can do next is we can go close this little drop down arrow thing and then hit the restart button, and we can just position this maybe right below the game over like that, and perhaps we can make this whole button a little bit bigger. So I'll click this little thing here to change the scale so that everything locks, and then we'll just make the button a little bit bigger, something like that. Actually, we'll just change everything to 2 because that'll be a little bit easier when we add some other buttons. And we can always customize this later, but for now, it's fine how it is. The one thing we can do is hit the little drop down arrow, go to our text, and to keep things consistent, we could make this the Electronic Highway just so it looks a little bit cooler. and it kind of matches the aesthetic of everything else. So the button is currently not active until we add this on-click event. So let's just see here if it's going to give us the info on how to do that. So it's not, so I've added these before, but what we'll do is we'll probably ask it to add the on-click events, or to teach us how to add the on-click events, just so we can get the full experience of asking ChatGPT how to do it. So let's keep, so we're going to need to remember to go back and make these buttons active, we'll call it, but we need to finish creating the other buttons first. So we can scroll down here. So now what we can do is we can duplicate the restart button and then rename it to exit. So what we'll do is we'll go into Unity with this button selected, we'll right click, we'll hit duplicate, and just go ahead and rename this to exit button. And then we'll hit the drop down. Well, first let's actually grab our exit button and we'll just move the position down on the Y to be below the restart. And then we'll click on the text and name this exit. And then we can go ahead and hit file and save. And then what we'll want to do is go up to our game over panel, so we can close all of that, our game over panel, and we can just disable it so that it won't start when the game's on. It's only going to come up when the game's over. And this will all be activated when we add our final game manager code. So we need to create one more menu, and that's the pause menu, because it would be nice to be able to pause the game. So what we need to do is follow a similar process, and we'll right click on our game canvas and UI panel, and we'll rename it to pause menu. So UI canvas pause menu. So essentially when you're creating menus, you can create a canvas for the menu you want to create, and then everything else is like a child of that menu. So by right clicking, we can then add different elements inside the menu. This way we can kind of have control over different menus and the events that take place within them. So we'll go back to ChatGPT. So the very first thing we need to do is just make a resume button. So it looks like we're going to make a resume, a restart, and an exit button. So very similar to the game over menu, except this one we can access this by pausing the game even if we don't lose. So we'll go ahead and create these buttons. So we can right click, we can go to, and this is, now that we've done this a few times, it's kind of good to practice to test yourself on if you can do it yourself. So we'll hit the pause menu, we'll right click, we'll go to UI, we'll go to So this is pretty easy. We can just make one button and then duplicate it 3 times. So I'll right click on the pause menu, we'll go to UI, we'll go to button, text mesh pro, and we're going to name the first one pause, or I'm sorry, resume. And before we duplicate it, let's just get everything sized up right. So I'll click this little button so the scales all change the same. Change it to 2. And I'll scroll, I'll go to my text underneath of it, and we'll change this to electronic highway. And I'm gonna call this one resume. And then what we'll do is we'll just hit the resume button, we'll duplicate it, and then I'll move this up on the Y position. And then we will click our resume button and we'll duplicate it one more time, and I'll move this one down on the Y position. So now we have a little menu here. All we have to do is we can just click, well, we should probably organize this. So this is resume. This one here can be restart, so we'll rename it to restart. And you just have to make sure that you select the text underneath of it and rename that to restart as well. And then we'll get our last button and we'll name this one exit. And I'll select the text, change that to exit. So now we have an exit, resume, and restart, which is awesome. That's just what we want. So what we're going to do next is, before we activate all these buttons, and we'll also need to go to the pause menu and just make this so that it's hidden from the start, we're going to go ahead and update the game manager code. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, hit copy, and I'll go into my scripts and hit game manager. And I can see that my current game manager is a lot longer than the one that ChatGPT is giving me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this game manager code right here. And I'm just going to, so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go into ChatGPT and I'm going to say, here is my current game manager code. Can you please update it to work with my game? And then I'll do a dash and Control V, and let's just see what it gives us. So this looks like it's definitely incorporated some of the old code, which is what we want because we don't want to lose any of our progress. So I'm just making sure that these codes are the same. I can see that this one just strung out a bit longer because of the text at the top, the way that this header was. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'll go into Visual Studio, and I'm just going to right click and hit paste. So you can hit File and Save. So it's saying that the button assignments are already done in this code. I'm not sure about that. We'll have to double check. It's saying it's done some stuff for pausing. So it says select, the final steps are to select the game manager in the hierarchy and drag and drop the following UI elements into the game manager inspector. So it looks like we need to line some stuff up. So what we'll do is we'll go back into Unity and we'll select our game manager. And you can see there's all these buttons here. So what we need to do is find our timer text. We'll drag that in. And it's not going to let us. Let's see. It's probably because maybe they weren't public. Let's just ask it here. I'll say, I can't drag and drop into those slots. Let's see what it says. So the issue is that in our game manager code, the UI reference used text, but we're using Text Mesh Pro. So we need to change the types. So it's definitely Text Mesh Pro. So it looks like it's giving us a new code here to update our script to use this. So let's copy that. Actually, let's copy our current. So I'll copy the current game manager. I'll do a copy, and I'll go into ChatGPT, and I'm going to say I'm using Text Mesh Pro. So a note for next time, maybe we should let it know that we're using Text Mesh Pro before we ask that. So I'll say, can you please update my current code, and then dash Control V, and it should spit us out the updated code. So here's your updated game manager with Text Mesh Pro support. The only changes needed is to replace text with TMP text and using. Okay, so it's not changing any of the functionality of our current code, and it tells you down here what changed. So what we'll do is we'll copy this, and I'll go into Visual Studio, and I'm just going to right click and paste. I'll do File and Save, and if we go back into Unity, with our game manager selected, we can now drag the timer text into the timer text slot, our score text into score, our health text into health, and our round text into the round. So we'll need to go to our game over panel, game over text into here, our game over panel into here, the pause menu. We'll need to grab our pause menu, drag that into here, and then we'll need to do the same with the buttons. We'll do the resume button, we'll do our restart button, and we'll do the exit button. And now we can go ahead and hit File and Save. So if we go back into ChatGPT, it says to press play and check things out. So I'm not sure, we may need to still activate these buttons, but let's just go ahead and press play and test it out. So I'll go ahead and hit play. And it's going to load up the game. And round one. Okay, so it's working. I can move my cube. Let's so the timer's counting down. Cool. Let's get hit. Okay. So it looks like the health is not. Oh. Okay, so that's interesting. It looks like my health was not counting down, but I got hit 3 times, and now let's see, I can restart. So those buttons aren't working, which is what I suspected. We'll have to manually end the game here. So I have a couple questions. We need to ask it, how can I access the pause menu, for one? And then we'll also need to fix the issue with the health not counting down, or perhaps maybe this should start at 0 and count up. So let's ask that. So I'll say let's start with the buttons. My game over buttons aren't working. Do I need to set them up? I'm pretty sure we definitely 100% do, but we're going to ask it and see what it says. And then I'll say also, how can I access the pause menu. Is there a button I can press to pause the game? Because right now we just have this pause menu, but we don't actually have, we never actually asked chat like what can we do to like bring the pause menu up. So my game over buttons aren't working. Do I need to set them up? Also, how can I access the pause menu? Is there a button I can press to pause the game? I'm assuming I'll also need to set, well, we shouldn't say set them up. I'll say also need to create on-click events for those buttons, because that's the correct terminology. So my game over buttons aren't working. Do I need to create on-click events for them? So let's just start with that, and then we'll address the issue with the health. So yes, we do need to create the on-click events, but I'm really happy that when I was hit 3 times, even though it wasn't reflecting up here, it correctly ended the game and our timer's working. I didn't notice a score, but that's because we didn't make it to another round because we were just testing for the health to work. But once we get the health working, then we'll actually test being able to move to different rounds. So what we need to do is manually assign on-click events. So we're going to click on the restart button in the hierarchy, and in the inspector we'll scroll to the button script component, and under on-click add new. And we'll drag the game manager object in and click no function restart game. So what we'll do is we'll go over to the game over panel, and we'll go to the restart button, and we'll scroll down here, and right here where it says on click, we'll hit the little plus icon, and it says none object. We need to grab our game manager, and we'll drag that in there, and we'll go to no function game manager restart game. So pretty easy there. And for exit button, we'll do the same thing. Make sure to grab the game manager, not the game canvas. I need to go back to my exit button, game manager, sugar. I'll control Z that. So I'll go to my exit button, I'll scroll down, we'll hit the plus icon to create an on-click event, grab the game manager, we'll drag that in there, go to no function, game manager, exit game. So I'm going to go ahead and hit file and save, and we'll go ahead and do the same thing for the pause menu. So I'll hit resume, scroll down, click the little plus icon, grab the game manager, not the game canvas, we'll drag that in there, go to no function, game manager, and this one we're also just going to hit resume, I'm not seeing one for resume. We'll get back to that. Let's just do the restart one real quick. So we'll do this, and then we'll go to game manager, function, game manager, restart game, and then we'll do exit, grab the game manager, no function, exit game. So we need to figure out this I'm sorry, that was supposed to be resume, not pause. So we'll go here, game manager. Toggle pause. So let me ask chat that actually. So click on the restart button. Okay, so it's going to update our code to add a key press. So what we'll need to do is modify the update function to listen for the escape key. So it's going to give us some new code here, and here's for the pause menu right here. Okay, so for the resume button, it's going to be toggle pause. which is what I thought, but I just wanted to make sure. So we'll go to Game Manager, toggle pause. So I'm going to hit File and Save, and now all we have to do is go back into ChatGPT, and we're going to copy this new code here. So I'll hit Copy, and this code here is going to allow us to hit Escape to pause the game. So that'll be the very first thing that we test. So I'll go into Visual Studio, and I'm just going to paste this new Game Manager code in here. Alright, so that looks about right. We'll hit File and Save. So now we're going to test our game and see where we're at. So I'll go ahead and hit play. Okay, so round 1 is working. Timer is working. It's counting down. Looks like I got 500 points for the first round already. Let's see if the menus work. Okay, so let's restart. Okay, cool. So our restart thing works. Let's hit escape. Now let's see if we can resume the game. Aha, so resume isn't working. Can we restart it? Yes. Okay, so our resume button is not working. Alright, so what we can do is we can just say to ChatGPT, great, everything is working so well, but we have 2 issues. I set up my pause button to toggle pause in the on-click events. But it's not working. Or no, we'll change. I set up my resume button. But it's not working. I'll say also, do I need to set health to 0 currently when we'll say when the player is hit 3 times, the game ends as expected, but the health meter we'll say the health text just says 3. And let's just see what it says here. Okay, so I think what the issue is here is that we don't actually need the resume button. I think that what we need to do is escape is our essentially pause and unpause button. So we can test this by hitting play on the game. And I'll just hit escape, and then I'll hit escape again. Okay, so yes. So we don't actually need this pause button here, or the resume button. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that, because escape is acting as our pause and unpause button. So now when we hit the pause button, we should just get a restart and exit menu. Of course, if you really wanted a pause button, you could, but since we already have escape acting as our pause and unpause button, it would be kind of redundant. So we can skip over all this. So now it says issue 2, health text not updating to 0. Right now, when the player's health reaches 0, the UI doesn't update before calling game over. We need to update health first, then call game over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab my game manager code here, scroll all the way down, and I'll right click and hit copy, and I'll say can you please update this so the health works correctly? Do not change any other elements of the code. Say, I'll need the full updated script, please. And then dash Control V, and I'll enter. And now it says, here's your fully updated game manager, where health updates correctly when the player is hit and reaches 0. No other elements have been changed. So I'll go ahead and hit copy, and now it's saying previously health stayed at 3. Now when the player is hit 3 times, health is set to 0 before game over is called. Ensure health never goes below 0, prevents negative health values from being displayed. So I'll go ahead and I'll paste this code, and hopefully this is our final game manager code here. I'll hit file and save. If you need to copy this code, you can pause, but again, I'm providing all the code in a link in the description to this video. So now I'll go ahead and hit play, and we'll test everything out. It's always a good idea to test stuff out anytime ChatGPT gives you new code, because you want to make sure everything's still working the way it was. So I can move. Let's pause the game. Okay, so it looks like the health is still not updating. So let's just see if we can make it to another round. Alright, so round 2, and it looks like it has added 60 seconds on. So the one thing that I'm noticing is that the game is not getting more difficult, or at least it doesn't feel like it. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to ask ChatGPT to make sure that each round becomes more difficult. Maybe these things will speed up or get faster. Okay, so I just realized that I made an error. I paused my recording of the video, and I went to my game manager right here, and I fixed it, but I saw that my timer text, I had accidentally dragged it into my health text. And I realized that because when I was playing, the time would switch to 0 with that updated code when the player had been hit 3 times. So when I was playing, I noticed that, and I decided, hey, I need to go check this. So I checked my game manager, and I set everything up. So now we have everything working well. So if I hit play and go ahead and play the game, and you can also notice right over here, the resume button wasn't working before because I must have not dragged it in. So the toggle pause would have worked. So now you can see the health is counting down, and cool. So now the only thing that I want to do is make this get progressively harder with each round. Okay, so if you've made it this far, congratulations. We can now we have all these cool menus that can do things, and we have a functioning game here. So the last thing that we're going to do today, of course, you could really make this as crazy as you want. You could add custom backgrounds. You could change these from cubes to characters. There's so much stuff you could do. You could really go crazy. You can literally turn it into anything you want, and I'm sure that I'll probably soup this up and release some kind of version of it, maybe add some sound effects and stuff. This video is already getting pretty long, so we're not going to get into all that in this video, but you can check out some of the full games we've made in the link in the description. But the last thing we're going to do for this video is just make each level get progressively harder. So I'll say everything is so perfect thank you. I'll say, how can we make each round noticeably more difficult? I'll say example. the particles fall faster, more particles as the rounds increase. And we can also change our player speed because we might need to do that. So we need to modify falling object to support variable speed. We'll need to make sure each falling object speed increases each round. So we'll need to modify, it looks like, our spawner and our falling objects code, and then the game manager code. So what I'm going to do, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to update these codes one by one here. So let's see, let's go to our falling objects code and first just take a look. So it's about 16 or 14 lines, so it's very, very short. So that looks about right. So what we'll do is we'll go to Unity, or I'm sorry, we'll go back to chat, and we'll grab the falling objects code, and I'll go ahead and paste this in here. I'll hit File and Save. And then we'll go to our spawner and hit Copy. Go to Spawner, scroll down and paste that. I'll hit File and Save. And then lastly, we'll go grab our game manager code here. And we'll paste this in here. If it gives you a code that's way shorter than the current one, we'll know that something's probably wrong. So this one's actually a little bit longer, so everything should be in there. We'll test it and make sure. So the final step is to click on Game Manager in the hierarchy, and in the inspector locate the spawner field and drag and drop spawner object into the spawner slot. So we'll go to Game Manager, and there's a spawner. So now we need to grab our spawner and drop that in there. So we'll hit File and Save. And now it says we just need to test the game. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and test the game. So we can see I start out with 500 points. Let's restart just to make sure that works. Okay, so our buttons are working. Round 1. Let's see if we can get past round 1. Maybe I'll get hit once in round 1. Just to see if, make sure the health meter's working. Come on, spawn some over this way. Yep, okay, so the health meter seems to be working, the timer's working. We're very close to having a fully functional game here. The key is going to be, does this get harder as it progresses? And let's see, maybe we can make it to, what is it, round 10? I think we said 10 rounds. Whew, that was very close. Round 2, okay, cool. These look like they're falling a little bit faster. Depending on how difficult this gets, maybe we can adjust the player's speed. But right now I think this is good. It might be fun though to have him go a little bit faster. It actually might make it more challenging. And we should be able to update that. So this is only round 2 right now. This would definitely be, oh, I got hit. It looks like it, oh yeah, so my health resets each round, good. So this would actually be really fun with, oh, and I died on round 2, wow. I wonder how hard this can actually get. That wasn't very hard, so I'll just retry this one more time. But yeah, with like some sound effects, this would be cool. I'm also super tired right now. This has been a very long day. But I will show you how you can adjust his speed, and maybe we'll test that out. So yeah, let's actually just do that. I can mess around with this game later. So to adjust the player's speed, we can go up to player, and if you see down here, we've got the speed. Let's just set this to something like 20, just to see the dramatic change. So go ahead and hit play. And you can just customize this to your own game. Like you might need to make this, you know, him faster or slower depending on. Okay, so that is crazy fast. Whoa. Oh, and that's cool that our effect still works there. So that's just way too fast. That's awesome. I think 5 is probably a good number, at least for now. I'll just keep it at 5 where it was. But yeah. So guys, I really do hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you guys like this and you like this video, we can do some other stuff in the future on Unity. Perhaps maybe we could do something maybe with this game or with another game, showing how you could take a basic shape and turn it into like an actual player, something like that. But yeah, feel free to check out our games on itch.io. I know depending on when this video gets released, we do only have one up right now, one fully functioning game. It's a platformer, really stoked on that one. But very soon after, we're going to be dropping clickers and some other games that we've been working on. And those are going to be, all the games are going to be available on iOS and Google Play very soon. So yeah guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.